What do you do about a family that your family, if you feel like it's toxic, or just a family member out of your family that you feel like is not good for you? It's a very complicated situation to figure out on your own. And so first and foremost, I would suggest talking to someone who's familiar with family dynamics, someone that you trust, a professional that can really help you with an objective view figure out what it is that is bothering you about your family and how to peel away from some of the negative toxic behaviors that you don't want to continue passing down to your children. And so with that, I'll just give you the permission to do what you need to do. I think I want to, speak a little bit more about that feeling of obligation to put up with, tolerate, turn a blind eye to issues that you know are not right, that are disturbing to you, that are not backed by your morals, that are not in alignment with your standards or your expectations of the way people should live their lives. A lot of times we will overlook those things or pretend that they didn't happen because we're blood related to someone. And yes, we are related to people, but everyone that you're related to is not necessarily your family in the true sense of it's a compassionate environment. It's an empathetic environment. I'm safe to grow and change and acknowledge different issues. Not every family member is going to be that way. So you may have kinfolk or relatives, but they may not be deemed your family. And so just giving you permission to change the definition there, change the relationship, and do what you need to do to stay healthy, as opposed to feeling obligated to just do the same thing over and over and over again, and all the while getting more miserable in the same situation. And so how can you deal with a toxic family member? This is not a surefire way. If you do these 3 steps, you'll be good. I always suggest, having your own professional help. But a couple of things I would say is acceptance. So anytime a family member is problematic, maybe our first reflex is to try to change them. They must change. They always do this. They always do that. I have to tell them about it and they need to change. Well, sometimes we just have to accept that that person is where they are. That doesn't mean that we approve of the way they treat other people, but we can accept that that's where they are in their life. And then we can move on to something else, to a different way of being with them, whether that's distancing ourselves or, making visits short, whatever we have to do. Once we accept that they're not going to change, and fighting that battle is probably not going to work. And then number 2 is having a level of compassion. Again, this doesn't mean that you approve of anything that they're doing. It's just a more or less understanding the context with which they bring their issues to you. And so just as we're talking about our families having certain ways of doing things and that pouring over into us, your family member has had that same thing. Maybe they too have experienced some very traumatic things, or whatever the case may be, that have led them to see life and deal with people in that way. And so compassion just helps us to remove some of the bitterness and resentment and anger that we might have towards our family members, even while we're setting those healthy boundaries with them. And then the last thing actually is setting boundaries, giving yourself permission to do what you need to do in order to have a healthy space. Maybe this means, say you do want to go to your family's house for Christmas or Thanksgiving, whatever. You can go. Maybe the rest of the family stays for 4 days and they stay in the same spot and they do this and this is how they do that. Well, maybe you just go for the day. Spend some time, because maybe you can tolerate them, or maybe it's different. I don't know, when it's a day visit rather than a 4-day long situation. You can make that decision, and that's a boundary. Hey, I'm going to come, but my boundary is that I'm not going to stay overnight or for multiple days, something like that. And just realizing that once you start to do those things, you'll feel better about how you're handling your family members and your relationships. And so your energy will start to shift once you start to do what will make you happy with your family life. And so I hope these tips were helpful for you. This is really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to toxic family relationships. I mean, I really could talk all day about it, but those are just a couple of suggestions for how you can better deal with your family relationships and helping you identify the toxicity that may be in your family system. So if you have questions, comments, feel free to message me. And don't forget to believe, be free, and be well. Bye.